Hello, young man. I'm glad you're here to talk about something that's very important to me, and that's the topic of vices. You see, as the Dark Knight of Gotham City, I've seen my fair share of people struggling with various forms of addiction, and it's a problem that affects not just the individual, but also their loved ones and the community at large. Now, I'm not here to lecture you or preach to you, but rather to share my own experiences and insights with you in the hopes that you can learn from them and avoid some of the pitfalls that I've seen others fall into. You see, as a vigilante, I've had to deal with my own set of demons, and I've learned that the line between good and evil is often blurred, and that even the best of us can fall victim to our own weaknesses. One of the most common vices that I've seen people struggle with is substance abuse, whether it's alcohol, drugs, or some other form of addiction. It's a problem that can quickly spiral out of control and lead to all sorts of negative consequences. I've seen people lose their jobs, their relationships, and even their lives to addiction. And it's a tragedy that can often be prevented. Now, I'm not saying that I'm immune to temptation or that I've never struggled with my own vices, but what I am saying is that I've learned to recognize the warning signs and to take steps to protect myself from falling into the trap of addiction. And that's something that I want to pass on to you because I care about you and I want to see you succeed. So, let's talk about some of the ways that you can avoid falling into the trap of addiction. First and foremost, it's essential to be aware of your own strengths and weaknesses. What are the things that you're passionate about? What are the things that you're good at? And what are the things that you struggle with? By understanding yourself better, you can identify potential areas of vulnerability and take steps to protect yourself. Another important thing to keep in mind is the company you keep. The people you surround yourself with can have a big influence on your behavior. And if you're hanging out with people who are into substance abuse or other forms of addiction, it's only a matter of time before you get pulled in too. That's not to say that you should cut ties with your friends or family members who may be struggling with addiction, but rather that you should be mindful of the influences that are around you and make informed choices about who you want to spend your time with. Now, I know that it's not always easy to say no to temptation, especially when it's coming from someone you care about. But let me tell you, it's always better to be safe than sorry. If you're not comfortable with something, trust your instincts and walk away. It's not worth risking your health, your relationships, or your future for a fleeting high or a moment of pleasure. And finally, it's essential to have a support system in place. Whether it's a trusted friend or family member, a therapist or counselor, or a support group, having people who care about you and can offer guidance and encouragement can make all the difference. Don't be afraid to reach out for help when you need it, because that's what friends and family are for. As the Batman, I've seen my fair share of villains, and one of the most insidious is the villain of addiction. It's a foe that can sneak up on you when you're not looking, and it can wreak havoc on your life in a matter of moments. But the good news is that addiction is a treatable condition, and with the right support and resources, you can overcome it and go on to live a happy, healthy, and fulfilling life. Now, I want to share a story with you about someone who struggled with addiction. It's a story about a good person who made some bad choices and who ultimately had to face the consequences of those choices. It's a story about the importance of seeking help and support, and about the power of redemption and forgiveness. The story is about a man named Jack, who was a successful businessman with a beautiful family and a thriving career. But despite his outward success, Jack was struggling with an inner demons. He was addicted to prescription painkillers, and he had been taking them for years to deal with the stress and pressure of his job. At first, the pills seemed like a harmless way to cope with the demands of his career, but over time, Jack found himself taking more and more of them until he was dependent on them just to get through the day. He tried to quit, but he couldn't, and he began to experience all sorts of negative consequences. His relationships with his family and friends began to suffer, and his job performance began to decline. Despite the warning signs, Jack continued to deny that he had a problem, and he continued to take the pills until it was almost too late. It wasn't until he hit rock bottom and was forced to confront the damage that his addiction had caused that he finally sought help. With the support of his loved ones and with the guidance of a therapist and a support group, Jack was able to overcome his addiction and turn his life around. It wasn't easy and it wasn't quick, but with time, patience, and perseverance, he was able to rebuild his life and his relationships and to find a new sense of purpose and meaning. Now, I want to ask you, have you ever struggled with addiction or known someone who has? If so, you know how difficult it can be to overcome, but also how rewarding it can be to seek help and support. As the Batman, I've seen firsthand the devastating effects of addiction, but I've also seen the power of recovery and redemption. So, what can you do if you or someone you know is struggling with addiction? First and foremost, seek help. There are many resources available, from support groups to therapy to rehabilitation programs. Don't be afraid to reach out, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Second, be patient and understanding. Overcoming addiction is a long and difficult process, and it's not something that can be done overnight. It takes time, effort, and support, but it's worth it in the end. And finally, remember that addiction is a disease and not a moral failing. It's not something to be ashamed of, and it's not something that defines a person's worth or value. With the right support and resources, anyone can overcome addiction and go on to live a happy, healthy, and fulfilling life. As the Batman, I've dedicated my life to fighting crime and protecting the people of Gotham City. But I've also dedicated my life to helping those in need and to supporting those who are struggling with addiction. It's a tough road, but it's a road that's worth traveling because the rewards are so great. So, if you're struggling with addiction, or if you know someone who is, don't give up. There is hope, and there is help available. Don't be afraid to reach out, and don't be afraid to ask for help. You are not alone, and you are not defined by your addiction. You are a strong and capable person, and you have the power to overcome anything that comes your way. And finally, I want to leave you with a quote from a wise man who once said, "The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall." Don't be afraid to fall, because it's in getting back up that we find our greatest strength. And don't be afraid to ask for help, because it's in seeking help that we find our greatest courage. So, keep your chin up and keep your heart strong. Remember that you are not alone and that there is always hope. And always remember that no matter what challenges you may face, you have the power to overcome them and to rise above them. See you soon, friend.